Hey guys, this is Zion Force coming back to you with another update on my component entity system. So typically, I wouldn't update this soon in development, not time-wise, but as in how much time I've spent working, just because I really haven't gotten much done to make it significant enough. But the reason I am making another update is because I'm considering this the completion of iteration 1. So I'm just going to show you what I have. So the things I've added, if I'm remembering what I had last time correctly, I have a dynamic entity creation, and right now it just creates a wall. Collision detection and resolution, and there's also, I don't really have, the only proof of this that I have is the console window. So it says entity 0 collided with 7, and the reason that pops up on the console window is because I've implemented a set of static triggers. So when an entity is created, destroyed, if an entity moves or collides with another entity, some sort of trigger fires, and every behavior of that entity will have a certain function called, and it can do something. So just for testing purposes, in the only behavior that I have coded for the input, I basically said to output the collision to the console. And honestly, that's all that's new. Whoa, that lagged for a second. Anyways, so now I'm going to move on to iteration 2. I have this big list of things that I want to get done, and I'm planning to either split this list into 1 or 2 iterations. If I make shorter iterations, then I'm going to make a set of tutorials in between every other iteration. But if I make the iterations longer, then I'm planning on making one of the tutorial sets after every iteration. And the reason being is one of the first things I have on my list of things to do in the next iteration is to make the game class an abstract base class and add in a scene manager and such. And most of the stuff that I'm putting in right there is going to be stuff I'm going to pull out for the first set of tutorials where I show you the basic structure of a game, really basic structure of a game, and using SFML. But I'm hoping that'll be general enough to use anything if you'd like. But I'll be using SFML. And so after the second iteration, I know I'm going to make the first set of tutorials, that first set. But if I make this second iteration longer, then after the third iteration, I'll make the second tutorial set, and then I'll just keep that process going after every iteration, making a set of tutorials, hopefully. But if I'm going to do shorter iterations, then I'm just going to do it after every other iteration. So we'll see how that goes. And this long list that I have, I'm just going to go through and pick out a few things that I have planned for way far along, not in any upcoming iteration, but I want to make a GUI stack. I want to be able to parent entities, so I need to add in a system to nest entities, so I think that would be great. I want to, at some point, write my own profiler and memory manager. I think those would be useful experiences for me. So that's stuff way later on. I'm not going to... This whole list is things that are way later on, but oh well. I'm not going to go through each of those one by one. I'm just going to kind of pick out things. So I already told you about the scene manager. The next thing, I need to make an entity manager to kind of facilitate creation and removal of an entity. Right now, it's kind of just an exposed map of entities, and I need to actually make that into a vector to make things faster. One of the things I've been looking at lately to kind of get ideas is the Artemis Entity System Framework. Almost tripped up there. But it's programmed in Java, it's real lightweight, and it looks really useful, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. And so I've pulled a lot of ideas from it. And one of the things is base system class. They have multiple types of it, though. Interval, delayed, and one that is like a loop that I'm going to call. So the interval is a system that updates on a certain interval. Delayed is one that updates after a certain time period. So that to me it sounds like it only updates once, because if it updates after that time frame every time, it would be interval, I would think. And then loop is just one that updates every frame. So I think that'll be very useful. So I want to implement those, and that's one of the things that I may push to the third iteration. I also want to have the systems hold a list of entities that are valid for them to use. So basically, every system requires an entity to have a certain component or certain components to use. So, for example, the rendering system, for it to update any entity, that entity must have a position or a transform later on when I make the properties more inclusive. And it also has to have some sort of graphical object, like text, maybe a primitive in SFML, so like a triangle, we could say, or a sprite. But if it doesn't have one of those, then it has no business updating it. So I'm planning on implementing this entity.refresh function, which basically every time you remove or add a component, you call refresh, and all the systems are notified, and all the systems will look at that entity and say, hey, is this entity now valid, or is it still valid? So it'll either add or remove it from its set of valid entities. So it'll have that list to go off of. I also want to make that hash function I have and make it into its own string class. I also want to automate the process. Right now, the process of adding a property into the game. So right now, every time I add a property, I have to put it in this data manager thing. I kind of want to avoid doing that. So I have an idea to automate that. And so I'm hoping I'll get that done. So that's pretty much all I have for now. Sorry, I kind of tripped up over a lot of things in this video. I'm kind of trying to get it done really, really fast because I don't want it to be long. But one last thing, while I program, I love talking with people. It sucks to just be here alone, and so it's good to just like have a conversation going on. I guess it kind of helps me out, makes it more enjoyable. So if you want to talk to me while I'm programming, just add me on Skype. If you would like to do that, just message me, hit me up, email me, whatever, and I'll give you my Skype name and we'll hook it up. All right. Well, that's it for now. Peace.